TV Tower. Our TV tower was supposed to be a response to the famous Ostankino Tower. At the time, when television began to develop at a frantic pace, another competition began between the republics of the former USSR, whose TV tower will be both the highest and the most unusual. It is worth explaining that the grandiose Ostankino television tower, 542 meters high, built on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the October Revolution, surprised the world a lot. The reason is as follows. Compare. The famous Eiffel Tower is only 318.7 meters high and has a very wide base, about 100 meters in diameter. Ostankino television tower, which is almost 1.5 times higher, 542 meters, is held on a base of only 90 meters. The depth of its foundation is only 5 meters. Just think about it. This idea was born at the beginning of the 20th century, when the tower designer Nikolai Nikitin, when he was a little kid, played with spools of thread strung on a string. Having tightened the rope, Nikolai Nikitin discovered that it's a very flexible and at the same time stable structure. This principle formed the basis for the creation of the Ostankino Tower. Hundreds of steel cables are pulled together inside it. The developers of Almaty Tower faced an equally difficult task to ensure the stability of the tower in a seismically hazardous zone on a shaky, unreliable ground. Soils on Koktobe are prone to waterlogging. Therefore, landscapes are frequent occurrence here. Our TV tower, even today in the 21st century, despite the emergence of many new wonders of the world and the scientific and technology advances, can rightly be called one of the most unique architectural structures in the world. It stands on the base of only 50 meters in diameter, almost twice as narrow as that of the Ostankino Tower. Our TV tower seems to have a simple but actually a very tricky design. The narrow base goes underground as much as 20 meters. The tower consists of 3 tiers, each of which has a different width, and they are inserted into each other like cups. The first tier is 40 meters high and 20 meters in diameter. The second one is 18 meters in diameter. The third one is 13 meters. The tower weighs 5.5 thousand tons, and 60,000 tons of concrete are poured into its base. This makes the Almaty TV tower stable, like an old roly-poly doll. It is able to withstand even a 10-magnitude earthquake. A strong wind shakes the Ostankino tower at the very top to the sides by 13-14 meters. Our TV tower is much more stable. Even with a hurricane wind, it deviates by 6 to 8 meters at most. Look at it. Above the large round turret, there is a second, smaller one. The designer installed a system of pendulums here, each weighing 4 tons. When the tower tilts in one direction, the pendulum swings and rumbles in opposite direction. The same principle works in an earthquake. If you find yourself near the pendulums on a quiet sunny day, you can hear the tower moving and breathing. Its steel side crackle and rustle. Engineers and maintenance personnel of the tower even say it is a living being. Due to the fact that the metal structures expand when heating up, the tower deviates slightly towards the sun at all times. As the sunflower constantly turns its head towards the sun, the tower stretches after it as it makes its circle in a day. Almost 12 years passed from the beginning of the design of Almaty TV Tower to its commissioning in 1984. The tower was developed together by 3 institutions: the Institute of Metal Structures, Designers, and Signalment. Construction did not stop even for an hour, even in the cold winter and holidays. In those years, people called Koktobe the Bald Mountain. Watching the way a giant needle stretched upwards above it, Almaty residents in shops, buses, on benches in the yard said to each other, "Look, the tower has risen a little more. Wow, how high. They say it will work soon. We'll watch new programs on TV." On January 30th, 1984, when the construction was nearing the completion, a fire broke out on a height of 330 meters during the installation of the antenna feeder structure. The feeder is a powerful high-voltage cable with a diameter of about 20 centimeters. Its operating temperature is almost 100 degrees. Luckily, the fire was quickly put out. Another curious fact, almost unknown, is that in 1990s, the famous couturier Pierre Cardin planned to open his own restaurant in RTV Tower. The sketches were already discussed, and even the name of Cardin was entered in the logo of the Almaty Television Center. But it turned out that together with the additional elevators, fire, and other systems, the project will cost a pretty penny. In the 1970s, the tower cost was 11.5 million Soviet rubles. At the time, this was an astronomical amount. Together with the restaurant, the tower would have cost 1.5 times more. Therefore, Pierre Cardin had to abandon grand plans. Now, instead of a restaurant at around 170 meters, there is a lot of sophisticated equipment: satellite, television and radio antennas, transmitters of cellular and trunking apparatus. All rooms with transmission devices are isolated from each other and equipped with an automatic fire extinguishing system. The TV tower regularly performs its functions and has been one of the main symbols of Almaty for almost 40 years. Kazakhstan Hotel. It was supposed to become a regional wonder of the world, and so it happened. Kazakhstan Hotel is the first skyscraper in the USSR in the 9-point seismic zone. They say it became the parent of the Kazakh postmodernism. In the 1980s, the hotel welcomed more than 260,000 guests annually. It really was a breakthrough, since for a long time in Almaty, the former city of Verny, which was literally destroyed to the ground by the earthquake of 1887, they simply did not dare to build buildings higher than 4 floors. Even Vakruk Sveta, Around the World magazine in 1970s wrote, "Verny was afraid of heights. People instinctively huddled to the ground. Although the possibilities to increase the number of floors of the city were considered at the different levels, design institutes worked on this back in the 1960s. But initially, they proposed a different hotel project, lower and simpler one. There were only 10 floors instead of 25, and the shape was cylindrical, not oval. They even dug a ditch under it. Meanwhile, the foundation pit has not disappeared. Now it is a large fountain on the south side of the hotel. They say it is the most powerful in the city. Digging a new pit was greatly complicated by the huge boulders that had to be removed to the surface. By the way, they have not gone anywhere. You can still see them today in front of the hotel facade. The boulders do not spoil the landscape at all. They serve as something like a small architectural form, a kind of monument to construction. Pay attention when passing by. During construction, the most advanced engineering solutions of the time were used, such as the Japanese technology of sliding farmwork around a monolithic reinforced concrete shaft. The foundation at a depth of 10 meters is a solid slab. According to the architects, for such a building, the slab serves as a more reliable foundation than piles. They make the structure sway, not break. It is also an interesting fact that absolutely all hotel rooms have a view of the mountains surrounding the city from the south. Even though the facades of the building are facing west and east, they did not stand on the inside of the building at all. There is a central air conditioning system, high-speed elevators, and the Cosmos restaurant at the very top. The reference book, Almaty, The Architecture of Soviet Postmodernism, describes the way the hotel was tested for the earthquake resistance after construction of the building frame. For this purpose, vibration machines were installed on the roof. The creative team was so confident in their design, recalls an architect Anatoly Anchugov, that we went up to the 25th floor. The building swayed from side to side. People could hardly stand on their feet. But after the machine was stopped, not a single crack was revealed. In December of 1978, a banquet was held in the restaurant on the top floor in honor of the facility commissioning. And in the middle of the night, we were shaking badly. It was a 6-point push, but nothing happened. Nevertheless, a permanent seismic station was placed in the building. 25 floors with a height of 102 meters under a golden crown immediately appeared in many guidebooks, on souvenirs, boxes of chocolates, and postcards. They even made lamps in the form of the Kazakhstan Hotel. Since 2006, the building has also been on a banknote with a face value of 5,000 tenge. By the way, there was no golden crown in the original project either. It appeared because the elevator shaft above the roof towered somehow obscenely noticeably and inverted the harmony. Then, the architect Yuri Ratushny proposed an anodized aluminum structure depicting ears of wheat. It is quite logical, since Kazakhstan was the breadbasket of the USSR. However, instead of the ears of wheat, the majority saw the crown, which immediately became the subject of heated discussions. Some were outraged by this form, others were delighted. Indeed, relatively recently, the gold of the Saka kings was unearthed in the Issyk barrow, although the project creators had a completely different intentions. Gold has already been used in the design of the facade of the Lenin Palace. Now it is the Palace of the Republic, which is located nearby. The find looked quite appropriate, and a similar solution on the roof of the Kazakhstan hotel made it possible to link it with the palace into a single ensemble. However, disputes were heated, especially because the hotel project was nominated for the USSR State Prize. For various reasons, the creators did not receive it, but they received the Republican State Prize. They say this is the only case when it was awarded not only to architects, but also to a house painter. Medeu skating rink. In 2009, the Almaty city magazine Unicum wrote, "Then, in the first half of the last century, people held their breath at the mere mention of Swiss Davos and German Ensel. Speed skating and figure skating competitions were broadcast on the radio. When Medeu appeared, world records were relocated to Almaty. For 17 winter sports seasons, there were 47 such records, an unprecedented number until then. During the entire existence of Medeu, 112 world records were set here. In 1973, in the very first year of rink operation, out of 375 best results of the season in the world, 249 were shown at the Medeu and only 126 at all other rinks in the world combined. It is no coincidence that many outstanding athletes compared their running on the local ice with the state of flight. Back in the 1940s, a skater and a coach, Konstantin Kudravtsev, unearthed the skating rink. He immediately appreciated the place, not even for the marvelous landscape. The secret was in the water that filled the skating rink. It was taken from Malaya Almatinka. The water of the river does not contain salt impurities, so the ice turned out to be ideal, fast, high speed. As a result, in 1951, the project was accepted. More than 20 years will pass before the start of skating rink in 1973. But time has shown the project was worth it. The ice depth here is 2.3 meters. 148 kilometers of cooling pipes are distributed in its structure. This cooling system had no analogs in the world and made it possible to keep the ice rink in working condition up to 8 months a year. Medeu is a still real technological wonder. The team of creators of the ice stadium, which included not only architects and designers, but also refrigeration and power supply engineers, received the USSR State Prize in Science and the Technology in 1975 for good reason. As stated in the reference book, Almaty, the Architecture of Soviet Postmodernism, here is a completely even foundation made of an innovative material, self-tensioning concrete that does not crack, shrink, and expand under the influence of temperature, a heat-insulating sandwich under it in an accuracy unthinkable for Soviet workers. 148 kilometers of pipes with freon are laid with a deviation not exceeding a millimeter, and all this in a seismic zone of 9 points. But in addition to the technique and quality of ice, on which more world records have been set than anywhere else in the world, there is also an aesthetic side. The stadium for 10,000 spectators is built into an unusually beautiful natural environment, as naturally as they could only do in antiquity. According to Unicum magazine, the peak of the ice rink's popularity became in 1980s. From the central stadium, lines of buses delivered people with skates thrown over their shoulders to the destination. Upbeat music poured from the loudspeakers. Wedding escorts traditionally came here. In terms of the numbers of visitors, it was like a Venice ball. Only anyone could get here. Cameras were clicking. Smoke was sipping from the barbecue stands. There was a festive atmosphere in the air. There was a complete mess on the rink, from kids to old people in shorts, dashingly skating circles. On weekends, Medeu gathered up to 9,000 skating enthusiasts. However, in 1990s, Medeu, like the whole country, underwent the great changes. There were no skaters, but the music festival Voice of Asia began. Pop stars like Kirkorov and Pugacheva, Vaska Furtado, and even the modern Talking began to appear on the stage, into which the famous skating ring has turned. Skating resumed only in early 2000s, but on a much smaller scale than before. The Asian Games 2011 brought a new birth to the skating rink, on the eve of which a major reconstruction was carried out. Today, athletes train at the rink again and various events are held. Most importantly, it has again become one of the favorite places of the rest not only for citizens, but also for the guests of Almaty. On weekends and holidays, there is no end to those who want to set foot on the ice on which real legends performed. Medeu Dam. The shield protecting the city of Almaty has long become a familiar part of the landscape. Even the word dam sounds so ordinary, pristine. Meanwhile, in 1970s, the Vakruk Sveta Around the World magazine reported about one of the most grandiose structures of its time. At one time, all the newspapers wrote about the creation of a dam in Medeu. In Almaty, at the first meeting, they asked, "Have you already seen the dam?" as they ask a visitor in Kiev about Vladimirskaya Gorka or in Bukhara about the Emir's palace. They say the dam glorified our city like no other architectural monument. Although the dam can hardly be called an architectural monument in the full sense. This is a complex engineering structure with a tragic history. Zailysky Alatau was considered the most mud-flowed hazardous region of the USSR. Only the mountains of Caucasus could compare with it. On July 8, 1921, 3.5 million tons of mud mass covered the city. The mud flow claimed 500 lives and destroyed the city. Giant boulders weighing up to 20 tons adorned the historical center of Almaty for a long time, almost until the end of 20th century. Observations of the Tuyuksu Glacier over Almaty showed that the volume of the moraine lake is growing rapidly. It has long been clear that the city needs a powerful dam. However, the engineers did not see any other way to build it, except for a directed explosion. Even such a comparison is mentioned. 100,000 slaves erected the 147-meter pyramid of Cheops during the life of a whole generation. The dam in Medeu, close in volume to the pyramid of Cheops, was created by an explosion in a matter of seconds. Then Muhammad Kunayev, the first secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Kazakhstan and a mining engineer in the past, convinced to put more than 5,000 tons of explosive in a 90-meter-long chamber at a 150-meter depth. Soon, 2 explosions thundered in the gorge. Prior to that, all the people with a property and animals were evacuated from a zone with a radius of 9 kilometers. The first explosion shook Almaty with a magnitude 4 earthquake. The power of the second explosion was 3,600 tons. There was never been anything like this in the world history. They say the echoes of the explosions were recorded by the seismographs even outside the Eurasian continent. The rocks collapsed. The gorge was filled with 6 million tons of rocks to form a bridge, which became the famous dam. However, at first its height was only 67 meters. After 5 years, it's increased up to 144. The length of the dam along the bridge is 530 meters. The mudflow reservoir is 6.5 million cubic meters were supposed to retain dirt and stones, and according to the calculation of the engineers, the water would go through the tunnels for the spillway. However, there were still many shortcomings to be eliminated. But in the hot summer of 1973, the moraine lake broke through the Tuyuksu Glacier. The flow destroyed in seconds the anti-mud flow trap made of steel and concrete at the Gorelnik campsite. When the mud flow broke into the valley and hit the body of the dam, the force of its impact was 120 million horsepower. Later, the newspaper Kazakhstanskaya Pravda wrote that no artificial structure created in the entire history of mankind has ever experienced such a thing. The dam was not yet fully prepared for such an onslaught. The mudflow reservoir was filled with a great speed, and Almaty was again under threat. In order to save the newly opened Medeu skating rink and the whole city, it was necessary to urgently build an additional dam. For several days, engineers, builders, soldiers, and drivers struggled with the elements, trying to strengthen the dam and build additional drainage system. Almaty was saved. However, only viewpoints, over which 5 check marks lined with a wood flaunt, remind of this. Today, no one remembers that they personified the symbol of victory, the Latin letter V. It was a victory over the nature, which, however, was very expensive, as mentioned in the reference book Almaty, The Architecture of Soviet Postmodernism. Today, the dam is one of the most visited places for tourists. It is impossible to bypass the dam on the way to the Shymbulak ski resort. Almaty residents come here every day for beautiful views and severe sport loads. To climb the dam, you have to overcome 842 steps of a very steep staircase. The official record entered the Book of the Records of Kazakhstan in December of 2020, was set here by Almaty resident Yuri Ponomarev, master of sports and athletics. He ran up and down the stairs 20 times in 6 hours and 42 minutes, climbing a total of 16,840 steps in both directions. During this time, he burned 5,100 calories and lost 3.5 kilograms. Try climbing the stairs to the Medeu Dam at least once, and you will understand what such a record was worth. Shymbulak Mountain Resort. In the notes of local historian Vladimir Proskurin, it is mentioned that the tract was discovered by fans of mountain skiing back in the 1940s. Skiers were attracted by an ideal slope for downhill skiing, a varied terrain, and so it has turned out later a unique composition of snow. Soon, the first downhill track in the country that meets international requirements appeared here. All union competitions have been held here since 1950s. 4 years later, Shymbulak became a full-fledged ski center. However, it was very different from the modern ski centers. Athletes lived at Medeu in especially equipped and comfortable cottages. But it was hard on the slope, 3 hours uphill and downhill, only 15 minutes. Therefore, in March 1954, a 1,500-meter-long steel line of a cable-towing road was put into operation here. Its construction at the time was tantamount to a feat. The technologies were still primitive, but frosts, deep snow, and avalanches complicated the work of the builders. But since then, the era of Shymbulak began, which received a monopoly of all union launches until 1962. 5 more times it became the venue for the USSR Championship. Since 1983, the Shymbulak Ski Center has become an Olympic center for ski training and has acquired infrastructure, a 4-story hotel for 220 people, a finished bath, and medical center. A 2-kilometer-long chairlift was launched. The downhill track was recognized as the best in the country. The names of many of its sections have survived to this day: Solnichная Dolina, Truba, Babya Yama. With the collapse of the USSR, the active sports life of Shymbulak stopped. However, at all times, the ski center united amazing people who supported its life. They could hold competitions, build tracks, and then sing songs with a guitar. In times of total shortages, they rode in long outdated equipment and tight boots that rubbed their feet until they bled. But these people were enthusiasts and romantics. As they said to themselves, hungry for the mountains, adventures, active life. The special spirit has been preserved here to this day. It was inherited by a new generation of Shymbulak employees. Now it is no longer just a sports center. Shymbulak experienced its second birth in 2011, when in preparation for the Asian Games, a major reconstruction was carried out here and a modern infrastructure was built. New cable cars, station. The slope was reshaped to make it convenient for visitors with different levels of skiing. It is very important that the trails for beginner skiers have appeared here. Shymbulak has turned from a sports center into a major tourist attraction and a real mountain resort, which today is considered one of the fastest growing in the world. Major international events take place here: the Asian Games 2011, the Universiade 2017. Since 2019, Shymbulak has been holding annual Mogul and Freestyle World Cup competitions. They are independently organized by the Shymbulak team together with the National Ski Association of the Republic of Kazakhstan. In 2021 and 2023, the finals of the Mogul and Freestyle World Cup were already held here. Since 2017, a snow park has been built at the resort every winter, which in 2022 was recognized as the best in the CIS. To this day, it receives high marks even from foreign riders. This is one more platform for future records. New restaurants have opened at Shymbulak, including large international chains. Boutique Hotel Snyk and Tenir appeared. The latter is generally the seventh hotel in the world in terms of height. Snyk, in the year of its opening, received an award as Best Boutique Hotel in Asia according to TripAdvisor. Amusements, a zipline and alpine park for extreme activities appeared at the mountain resort. Here you can fly paragliding, ride snowmobiles and ATVs, try horse riding. All this has led to the fact that the flow of visitors has grown rapidly. In 2010, Shymbulak was visited about 100,000 people annually, while at the end of 2022, this figure exceeded 1 million. What is especially wonderful, you can ski at the Shymbulak even after dark. Since 2022, the slope has been illuminated directly from the Talgar Pass, from a height of 3,200 meters. Therefore, on March 26 of 2023, Shymbulak set a new Guinness record. For this purpose, a special commission came to the mountain resort from Guinness, negotiations with which were conducted for a whole year. Shymbulak has the world's highest night skiing slope. Nowhere else in the planet you can ski at night from such height, even in the Swiss Alps. Main Botanical Garden of the Institute of Botany in Fit Introduction. Why is it called Main? Because there are also Zhezkazgan, Ili, and Astana botanical gardens. Although the garden is a popular place for walks for citizens and guests of Almaty, its scientific significance is very high. The main botanical garden is a giant open-air experimental laboratory. Here, on an area of 103.6 hectares, a live set of plants from all over the world are collected. They are under constant surveillance for the study and introduction of plants. In addition, this is the only institute of the country that studies the flora of all Kazakhstan. In the warm season, its employees are constantly on expeditions, exploring every corner of the country. In the Botanical Garden, the Institute of Botany in Fit Introduction is engaged in research and development on the protection, reproduction, and use of the plant world, including rare plant species. Also, here you can attend educational and popular science lectures, including special educational events for children, which are held by the Institute. Another interesting project of our Botanical Garden is the Black Book. Everyone knows about the Red Book, and the Black Book contains a list of plants that can be unusually beautiful, but are considered invasive for our country. They are so aggressive and viable that they are able to survive endemics, that is, indigenous people. Because of such invaders, plants that originally live in our territory are dying out. Knowing about them is also very important. Indeed, there appear more and more often exotic plants that have not passed the introduction tests and pose a threat to the local flora. That's what the Black Book is for. This is something like the Egyptian Book of the Living and the Book of the Dead. The project to create the Black Book has been going on for more than a year. Its publication is planned for 2023. The history of the Botanical Garden began on March 14, 1932, when the Presidium of the USSR Academy of Sciences decided to organize the Kazakhstan base for the USSR Academy of Sciences in the form of a botanical sector and zoological sector, as well as to create a botanical garden. Already in November 1932, a special team of scientists began to develop a primary range of trees and shrubs, ornamental perennials, lawns, and medicinal plants, which became the basis for the creation of plant collections. Now it is difficult to imagine, but at the time, in territory located in the foothills of the Zayliski Alatau, there was a steppe space on which rare poplars were seen in some places. All the green spaces that are now in Botanical Garden are the result of many years of botanists' work. In 90 years, the wasteland has turned into a green oasis. It is an interesting fact that the Almaty Guide of 1945 says, 3 kilometers from the city to the Botanical Garden. The following is a detailed description of the route by which you can get here. From the tram stop number 2, the corner of Shevchenko and Uygurskaya Street, now by Tursunev Street. From there, go west along Artilleriyskaya, that is Kurmangazy Street. And then you need to go past Kids Health Camp, Visnovka, up the rivers Visnovka, now Yasintai, and Paganka, the inconspicuous river Kerenklak, close between the Botanical Garden and the Kazakh National University. The territory of the garden has been inhabited by people since antiquity. In 1969, a small hoard of ceramics dating back to the 11th to 13th centuries was discovered here. It consisted of 2 humps, 5 jugs, a jar with 2 handles, and 2 glazed vessels. Probably settlements of the Usuns, the ancestors of the modern Kazakh clan of the Usuns, once lived in this place. On the territory of the Botanical Garden, there is even a Saka burial mound, officially registered as an archaeological monument. It dates back to 6th to 3rd centuries BC. The mound can be found in the central part of the park. There is a sign and a copy of a stone woman. The Botanical Garden consists of many alleys and paths. Walking along them, you can find the legend of the Botanical Garden, a century-old weeping willow, or get to a site with a unique collection dedicated to a progenitor of cultivated varieties of apple trees, the Siever's apple tree. In the northern parterre, you can see the spruce that looks like a giant mammoth and touch the trunk of an iron tree. But of course, you'd better walk here accompanied by an experienced guide who will tell you about all the variety of unique plants. For this purpose, you can book a special tour. Be sure to visit the Japanese garden with gazebo, wooden stylized bridges, and bonsai trees. On the territory of Botanical Garden, there is a meadow with an open-air stage where concerts of live classical music and meetings with interesting people take place. Al-Farabi Kazakh National University and Kazgograd University Complex. Al-Farabi Kazakh National University, also called Kazgu, once Kazgu, perhaps from its very foundation, was the main university in the Republic. Although it is all started in 1934 with a small building of the former Verny Gymnasium at Sovetskaya Street, today Kazbekbi Street. Only 52 students studied here. However, the number soon grew to almost 100, and the university was named after Sergei Kirov. The number of students grew from year to year, and famous professors from the Soviet republics came to teach here. After the start of the Great Patriotic War, almost 300 students and teachers went to the front. But the 1930s to 40s became the time of the real formation of the university. Some of the most famous people of their time taught here. Writer and scientist Mukhtar Awezov, Doctor of Historical Sciences Yermukhan Bekmukhanov, academicians Tuligin Tajbayev, Konstantin Persitsky, Branislav Dombrovsky, and many others. By the way, the Almaty Institute of National Economy, now known as Narkhos, also appeared on the basis of Kazgu in 1963. In 2009, the main university of the country was included in the list of the best institutions of higher education in the world according to the prestigious Times University rankings. Now more than 25,000 students study here. Also, the university has 16 faculties, 67 departments, 32 research institutes and centers, a technology park. More than 2,000 professors, doctors, and more than 100 academicians teach here. Today, a large university complex is spread over an area of 90 hectares between the Botanical Garden and the Visnovka, Yesentai River. Its construction began in 1971, but oddly enough, dragging on for as many as 18 years, it was never completed. Rather, it was not possible to fully realize the original intention of the creators. But this is one of the most interesting late Soviet architectural complexes. In the early 70s, the Вечерняя Almaty newspaper wrote about the construction of a new student campus, one of the largest not only in Kazakhstan, but throughout the Central Asia. a complex of educational and industrial buildings designed for 10,000 daytime students' education, a cultural and community area represented by a fundamental library with 1,700,000 volumes, an assembly hall for 1,500 seats, a sport complex with a student education department, a special training department, a vivarium, a botanical garden, etc. However, the main news was that Kazgu was declared an all-Republican Komsomol youth construction site. There was such a practice in the USSR of redistributing labor in the national economy. The Komsomol took responsibility for the construction. The event also had a great ideological significance, serving as an example of a truly communist attitude to work. The reason was simple. The university was not allocated enough money or labor. They just decided to let the students build it. The whole story is described in detail in the reference book, Almaty, The Architecture of Soviet Postmodernism. As a result, the completion of the first stage of construction was continually postponed, and in order to divert readers' attention from the main problem, when it will all be over, the newspapers reported roller coaster details. All classrooms and laboratories will be equipped with the latest equipment, including cinema, indoor television, electronic computers. Here, lectures on television, demonstration of educational films during lectures, and passing exams to machine will become commonplace. And in the assembly hall, they will install equipment for translating speech simultaneously in 5 languages. Today, it is even amusing. Our world is filled with gadgets, and the university without such an equipment seems backward. But then, it really sounded fantastic. Despite all ups and downs, numerous changes and improvements, the main idea of the architects of Kazakh National University is still preserved. According to the mentioned reference book, the main advantage of the campus it is landscape. If you enter from Timirazov Street, go up the wide esplanade, and go deeper past the faculties, you appear in the almost natural landscape where the sounds of a big city subside. At the time, it is easy to navigate anywhere on the campus. The high-rise buildings of the rector's office serves as the main lighthouse. Both the stands of the stadium and the new library can be seen. The buildings of students' dormitories are buried in the greenery of trees. They were painted in different colors so as not to be confused. As the creators intended, from an official dome to a working atmosphere and then to a relaxed life. There occurs a change in the emotional environment intended by the authors of the complex, despite all the changes that have occurred within the architecture and the country. Nur-Mubarak Mosque and University. The mosque officially opened in 2001. At the moment, its inner part accommodates about 700 men and 200 women, and in general, more than 3,000 people can gather on the territory surrounding the mosque at the same time. However, the idea to build a complex, including not only a mosque but also a university, arose back in 1993 after a meeting between the Kazakh President Nazarbayev and President Hosni Mubarak in Egypt. Nazarbayev conceived the idea of opening a training center in Kazakhstan, something like a branch of Al-Azhar University, which can be compared to the Cambridge among the Islamic universities. Al-Azhar is not only one of the oldest institutions of higher education in the world, with an ancient history and glorious traditions, but also the most prestigious Muslim spiritual university. The place was also not chosen by chance. It emphasizes the special status of the new mosque and university. One of the main transport arteries of the city passes in this area. Next to the Kazakh National University, one of the largest universities in the country, part of its land, 50 hectares, was allocated for the construction of the complex. The main idea during the construction of the complex was that the knowledge gained at the university, Islamic scholars and future clergymen could put into practice right there in the mosque. Therefore, most of the visitors are students. Since their number is growing every year, the number of parishioners is also growing. The building of the Egyptian University of Islamic Culture, Nur-Mubarak, is located to the right of the mosque. This is a university unique for Kazakhstan, where highly qualified specialists are trained. Islamic scholars, religious scholars, teachers of Arabic language and literature, translators. The Egyptian Republic financed the construction. The university is named after the Kazakh and Egyptian presidents, Nursultan Nazarbayev and Hosni Mubarak. In 2011, President Nazarbayev opened a new building here. The university has been fully operating since 2001 and has already trained about 3,000 graduates. It is noteworthy that Kazakhstan supports joint educational programs with reputable educational institutions abroad. For example, there is an agreement between the spiritual administration of the Muslim of Kazakhstan and Al-Azhar University, according to which the Egypt provide free grants for many Kazakh imams working on programs to prevent extremism and terrorism. There is also an agreement with Turkey, where about 300 Kazakh imams have completed advanced training courses. International Complex of Ski Jumps, Sunkar. The largest flagpole in Almaty is located here. Its height is 60 meters. The flag that flaunts there is huge, 15 meters long and 7.5 meters wide. A spectacular panorama of Almaty and its surroundings opens from here. Largely due to this, right under the flagpole, it has become fashionable to propose to your beloved. Any walk here, ordinary or romantic, will also be good. After all, in addition to luxurious views, ski jumps are a unique object. Its history began in 1932. Very little is known about this even to the natives of Almaty. Meanwhile, the sport complex will soon celebrate its 100th anniversary. During the Great Patriotic War, many athletes and coaches went to the front from here. Therefore, annually on May 9th, competitions are held here in honor of veterans, and many of their descendants take part in the Immortal Regiment. Initially, this grandiose project had a much smaller scope. A 10-meter training springboard worked here, and large ones of 40 and 60 meters. There was also a 5-meter one for children. Wikipedia mentions that the 55-meter springboard was restored in 1956, and 3 years later, the first international competitions were held here, in which 9 republics of the USSR participated. For many years, the facility regularly supplied excellent athletes for the Republican and other Soviet teams, but with the collapse of the USSR, like many other things, it fell into disrepair. Ski jumps experienced their second birth on the eve of 2011 Asian Games. A year before the event, a new complex with an area of more than 15,000 square meters was put into operation with a capacity of more than 5,000 seats. The majestic ski jumps K90 and K125, 90 and 125 meters high, respectively, are now visible from afar. Therefore, not everyone knows that there are also small springboards here, 20, 40, and 60 meters. They were built later. They have been attended by children since 2013. The equipment of ski jumps allows for training all year round, and here again, a new generation of talented athletes is growing up. They are only 17 to 18 years old, but in 2023, the Kazakh team has already received the first gold at the Universiade in the USA and silver in the team event. At the Children of Asia competitions, which took place at Sakhalin, our girls took gold, jumping over strong competitors from Russia. Coaches expect that Kazakh athletes will show good results at the upcoming Olympics. By the way, any child can get a ticket to the World of Big Sports here for free. As in Soviet times, coaches come to school, select children who are ready to go ski jumping. Any parent can bring his child and give it to the sports club. The number of young athletes has increased significantly in recent years. Today, more than 300 children are engaged here. The training center created for the Asian Games brings good results. In the meantime, the coaches train new record holders. Sports and social life at the Sunkar complex is full of events. A football field appeared here a few years ago. In August of 2020, an extreme zipline opened and has already received more than 12,000 people. Here on the zipline, the shooting of the well-known travel program Orel y Reshka with the participation of Anastasia Ivleeva took place. Rope jumping opened in April of 2021 with over 6,000 visitors. Here you can also take to the sky in a balloon or lie down on a net stretch at a height of 40 meters. By the way, all projects comply with the state standard safety of attractions. There is a multifunctional observation deck, the only one in Almaty, with a 360-degree view of the surroundings. Here, you can enjoy the views, take photos on the glass floor, watch competitions, and hold business events. In the evenings, there is a bar and a nightclub with the best views in the city. These are not all renovations of the good old Sunkar. It is rumored that the complex will be connected to the Botanical Garden by a wide and picturesque pedestrian bridge. They say this project was even presented for a discussion with the city authorities, as they wrote in the Forbes.